Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of One Patriots Place Live, brought to you by E2G Sports.com. And if you are listening on podcast, thank you for downloading. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your hosts today, Steve Ballestrory, Thomas Murphy on location, and myself, Clare Cooper, as we welcome him for his very first time on One Patriots Place. A respected veteran of the business of the South Florida Tribune, he has a view from the other side, covering the Miami Dolphins and more. It is Mr. Scott Morganrath. Scott, welcome to the show for the first time. How are things with you?
Well, thanks for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this a long time. When people go ahead and see me on the air, I'm really the Motor City Madmouth, based and born out of Detroit, but obviously, like Steve Ballestrory, you get sick and tired of snow and ice and all that business. So you migrate to the palm trees, and maybe we'll forget about the hurricanes unless you talk about your Hurricane 7 story. But anyways, and Bethune-Cookman would rather me not say anything after the slamming what happened over the weekend. But no, I've been in the business for 42 years, been broadcasting a lot of years. I've covered different teams as well, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Miami Dolphins mainly, and I've gone to a lot of NFL games as well as a lot in the sports world. So have an opportunity to come on a show like this to me is nothing short of a privilege and a pleasure. And thanks, Steve, and all you guys for having me on. I'm looking forward to having an awful lot of fun, entertain a few people out there, and maybe, if anything, you might learn a thing or two. So
there you go. There you go. Nobody called us a privilege and an honor until we got Clare to sit down with us. Until then, it was just, we got to go talk to Murph and Steve. All right, but
what did you say off air, that you had to go all the way to England to get a woman to work with you?
Yeah,
I said that. Yeah.
Steve said that.
Well, let me tell you, England is on my bucket list to get out there. I've never been across a big pond, so let's stay in touch. And I look forward to coming out there at some point. I'm targeting it next summer. So I do want to get out there. I've hit all 50 states. And I've gone to Mexico, and I've been to Canada, key parts of both of those areas, but haven't hit the England plunge yet. But without a doubt.
You're not missing anything. You're really not.
England's
not
wonderful. Don't listen to him. I've been there.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
In
fact, hey, Scott, here's a pitch for an idea for a show. Link
Sure.
up with Clare, and we'll do a remote with you and Clare and jolly old England.
Well, by all means, let's do it. I'm going to tell you, Tom Gage, the former iconic writer for the Detroit News, who I'm really good friends, said this to me, and I just take things when they say them in stride. He called me very industrious, so I guess I took it as a compliment. He said, it is a compliment, for crying out loud. So, Clare, all I can tell you is this, okay? I have no problem doing anything that makes sense. I just came back from Cooperstown, New York, and did about 12 videos in a short period of time. When you had 10 in Cooperstown, 2 in the in New York City, in the Bronx. So if there's an idea that makes sense, dial me in, get in touch with me, whatever you want to do, and I am ready. Because you know what? Until the man upstairs says I'm not allowed to talk anymore, and I hope that's a long time, bring it on.
There you go.
Well, Murph's comment, touched a nerve on one of our listeners that's from England, Chris Goodwin, and he said, "Oi, Murph, no dissing England."
I'm Irish. I'm allowed. Go away.
Well, I'm part American and part Canadian, whether you know it or not, because Detroit is right near Windsor. So if I go on the Windsor side of the whole thing, I know the word "a" pretty good. A. And I never really did well in foreign languages in the past. I attempted Spanish one time in high school, and after 3 days, got out of there, went back into wood shop. When German didn't work, I decided to go out there and work in metal shop. So it's safe to say my track record for foreign languages isn't good. And since I'm wearing a USF hat, okay, back in 1986 when I graduated, when I found out that they had a foreign language requirement, and I knew I had a pathetic track record for foreign languages, I piled into classes those last couple of months while I was at school and got out just by a snap of a finger. I wasn't looking to bring back Welcome Back Cotter, keep putting money out of my pocket so I could go to USF because I couldn't get past the foreign language requirement. No, soup for you, as somebody once said out there. And yes, I did graduate on time and didn't have to worry about that. So I don't want to take you off subject, but what can I tell you?
Hey, this is a Patriots show, so we're going to talk about Week 1 this week. You know, this is the toughest week, I think, to predict during the entire NFL season because teams kind of play close to the vest, you know, in preseason. They don't want to show too much. And, you know, there's always new moving parts on every team in the NFL. And there's always so many surprises on Week 1, but we're going to do our best to predict how this is going to possibly turn out. So, Scott, you're on that side of the coast. What do you think of the overall? What do you think of the Dolphins this year?
Interesting is probably the best word I can say. You bring in Mike McDaniel, San Francisco 49ers, offensive mind, okay? And we know that he has some good ideas. And they only brought him in here because you're trying to make sure that Tua was not a mistake at number 5 because he will always be measured against Justin Herbert at number 6. The Dolphins passed on Justin Herbert. You're talking about the same organization that did not sign Drew Brees. How did that work out? Nick Saban went to Alabama. So, you know, your Tua is a 5 to 7 yard passer, okay, where you hope you have a lot of runs after the catch. They're trying to save themselves from making a mistake with this guy. And, you know, the problem with Tua is he's been unable to stay on the field for an entire season due to durability issues. So when you look at the Dolphins, you know that Tyreek Hill will be a difference maker, whether you think that Tua is better than Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what Kool-Aid he was drinking, but not the one that everybody else is. And Jalen Waddle is a fine receiver out of Alabama, same place it was. So the Miami Dolphins are a very interesting organization is what they are. And when you look at the reality is that, hey, you know, they just recently, the owner got suspended for a while because of the Tom Brady fiasco. You go into a year where you have a lot of questions about, hope brings eternity. But the one X factor you guys should be aware of is they brought in Darrell Bevel as your offensive coordinator. And Darrell Bevel has a good track record wherever he's gone. We know about what he did in Seattle. We know that he did all right in Detroit, and he didn't do that badly in Jacksonville. So the Dolphins have to hope that Darrell Bevel installs a good balanced offense and is trying to get the most out of Tua Tagovailoa. If he does, Darrell Bevel looks like as big a genius as Mike McDaniel, and that's what they need right now. We already got the Brian Flores defensive side. How did that work? He's, as Ernie Harwell would say, long gone. Okay. So, you know, I guess when you break things in perspective, you know, when you bring in a new coaching staff and you have some talented players, let's just see if they can blend well enough. And then by doing so, you'll be able to make more determinations after the first couple of games. I mean, right now, I don't know a lot about the Dolphins in terms of what their perception is versus reality. I know enough about them to talk about them. They're on my media distribution list. I read all the transcripts. You read all you want, but it's what you see for 60 minutes on Sunday that'll tell the true story, right? And we have a lot of new faces going into 2022.
You mentioned about new faces, actually, and something that has interested me. Would you consider it more difficult to prepare for a game against a coach like Bill Belichick, who has got 40 years experience, but 40 years of film available, or a new coach, such as the Dolphins, with literally no film to watch?
That's a great question. That really, really is. I guess it comes down to the fact that you can prepare coaches simultaneously. One, you don't have anything to go on, or one that has a lot. And there's two schools for thought. It comes down to the talent level anyhow. Just because a guy goes out there and knows what you think you're going to do, there might be some new wrinkles. And, you know, if you were to ask me during their second meeting what you have after game one with one another, it's another story. You know darn well the Dolphins didn't go out there and show an awful lot. And, you know, everybody, the only thing that basically New England has to go on is Tua Tagovailoa, and they obviously could go by looking at film with Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle, limited sample size. So, Again, I'll go back to what I said, okay, and that's this. You've got a new coach who, by the way, I don't even think he was an offensive coordinator out in San Francisco. I believe he was a position coach. So you're really in a double barrel there. It'd be different if you have an offensive coordinator. You got a position coach who's getting his first opportunity as a head coach, and you can only go by with some of the players that he's developed and hear what you hear and all that sort of thing. But in the end, I would personally rather prepare for Bill Belichick because you know what he's going to do. You really do. I mean, he's only had 40 years in the business anyway, so he's a defensive-minded coach. He holds the players accountable, and that's why they have the Patriot way. I mean, Bill Belichick has done a great job turning problem children. I think Corey Dillon was one, and Randy Moss, and made them into model citizens. If that isn't Einstein or Freud 101, then I don't know what is. I really don't, because we don't know what's going to happen with Mike McDaniel. We really don't. So that's a great question. Thanks for asking me that.
Thank you. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, we do have some history on Bevel though, and McDaniels is he's somebody that really likes to run the rock, and I think that's why he brought Bevel in to begin with. Do you think that that Miami has the running back stable this year to actually implement these kind of style of football?
Well, you'd like to think that they do. That's for sure. When you bring in Raheem Mostert and all that. So I believe that they do have it. But again, running backs based on hits and so forth, to me, are an animal that you would believe that, I've seen so many great running backs over the years of my time covering the Lions, is what I've seen. And then you wonder, well, like Javid Best was a guy that was out of California, but got banged up with concussions and all that. So as far as I'm concerned, as much as you'd want to think that's the case, okay, they've made some changes for the running back stable. I'm one of those kind of people that has to see it on the field in as much than what you really see on paper. You know what I mean? And call it the see it to believe it approach is what you really do. And as long as you see it to believe it, then you got a puncher's chance is really what you do. So I hope it answers your question. We all know that he brings in Raheem Mostert because he's due to the familiarity factor is what you've got. And me personally, if I'm a head coach, if I have guys that I'm familiar with, I'm going to bring them in if I think they're going to be productive. But the Dolphins, to me, throughout their history, they've really never been a running team. If you really want to talk about their running attack, let's go back to Mercury Morris, Jim Kick, and Larry Zonka. But they both, and then a lot of people weren't even born when these guys were playing. So
and Dan Marino never met a running back that he wanted to shake hands with. So I understand that.
I don't think Dan Marino met any people he wanted to shake hands with.
Yeah, that's true.
But here's the reason why I'm bringing that up. Okay, think about it. You bring in Jimmy Johnson from the Cowboys, okay? You really do. And all of a sudden, by the way, Dan did win 2 Super Bowls, okay? And he should have won a third, but Barry Switzer got the Christmas present of a lifetime inheriting Jimmy's roster, okay? So here's the deal, okay, Dan? We're giving you a coach that has won a couple Super Bowls. So he wants to run the football. But Danny Ego Marino, okay, wants to chuck it as far as you can. Don Shula will let anybody do whatever he wanted to do if he thinks it could be an exciting situation. And they didn't get along very good. And as a result, I'll never forget at that Super Bowl in Jacksonville that I asked Dan Marino, ironically, isn't it and I didn't like him. And I'm not going to get into a lot of reasons why I did, but I thought his ego toward the press to me was a little annoying. And I think he was a great quarterback. His quick release was second to none. But I asked him, isn't it ironic that you got selected into the Super Bowl the side of your last game? Little does he didn't like that question because they got beaten like by 50, 60 points and ran it up on them. The Jaguars toasted him under Jay Fiedler. And as a result, Dan Marino. But my point of the matter is he an opportunity to have a balanced attack and wanted statistical passing numbers instead.
Right.
And nowadays, everybody knows that the key thing here is you've got to be able to have a balanced offensive attack. Many years ago, I interviewed O.J. Simpson on Monday Night Football at the Orange Bowl, and it was a great interview with OJ. It really was. I'm not care what he did later on. And OJ told me the key, Scott, is you have to be able to go out there and have a good running and passing attack. You need them both. Whatever works better is more exciting. Dan Marino didn't quite get that. Okay, luckily enough teams passed on this guy, where Miami snapped him up, and we all know how that worked out. He had the statue out of Joe Robbie Stadium, rightfully so. I'm not going to demean his accomplishments. He earned his way into the Hall of Fame.
No, feel free.
But yeah, I mean, well, okay, you don't mind? Then I will say that. Yeah, I will. I'll never forget the time during Super Bowl 33 that, I went to an event that Marino was behind, and he said a comment, and Steve, being around Super Bowls, a million events you could go to, right?
Yeah.
And I chose to go to this one. It was a charitable thing where Dan Marino Hospital or whatever for children. And he said, the only way I could get media people out there is by giving them free food. Let me tell you something. That set me off. And that's why I stuck him with that question up in Jacksonville. Dude, I could have gone anywhere, but, I had a little soft spot in this heart, albeit 20 years ago. I still have a soft spot, not for him. So anytime we get a chance at Dan Marino to take a shot at him, I will. Thanks for letting me do it. I have a lot. Well, but the reality is this, okay? I don't mean to be going off topic a whole lot, but you have to have a balanced attack, running and passing, and you have to find out whether or not Mike McDaniel will bring that dynamic into what we're doing, and that's why when you see each other on the first day, then it's interesting. But what we have to understand from the Patriots standpoint is they don't have a offensive coordinator by name anyhow. Josh McDaniels goes to Oakland, and then you wonder whether there'll be a regression in Mac Jones, since you have Joe Judge, and then you have Matt Patricia, which people don't quite like him in Detroit. So,
Let's talk about the important guys, the offensive line. Last year, this was a beaten and battered freaking group that truly didn't get it done and didn't do much to keep to it. Tagliaviola on the field. What's the upside this year?
To me, I think the upside is Tua needs to be a little bit smarter. They have invested in the offensive line. But, no matter how good your offensive line is, I'll always tell you right now that it really comes down to the quarterback being able to make the necessary audibles at the line of scrimmage if he sees certain defensive formations that he doesn't like. And two, you just have to hope that in year 3, that Tua's made enough progress anyways with the playbook and the film study that even if you do sacrifice a little bit on the offensive line, that you got to be able to be headstrong. Again, I'm going to go back to a previous situation, and that's this. Barry Sanders never had some of the better offensive line at all with the Lions, but he still made a lot out of nothing. And I always say he's the greatest running back of all time, not because I'm partial toward Detroit, but because of his ability to adjust along the way. Tua Tagovailoa, you have a third-year quarterback that needs to figure it out. You really do. And if he doesn't figure it out, then even if you have a great offensive line, at some point you have so many seconds in pass protection, either he's going to force it on the fly is what he'll do, or he's just going to make a stupid, or he'll run and he hopes, and with his durability history or lack thereof, you don't want to see him become susceptible to getting hurt. Remember, your backup quarterback is Teddy Bridgewater, and I believe they drafted a kid out of Kansas or Kansas State. I don't know him off the top of my head, but they think highly of this kid, and he made the team. What's that?
Skylar Thompson.
That's it. Thank you very much. Yeah. And this guy here, you may be hearing from him. He may be your next hidden gem with the Miami Dolphins. Think about it. The Dolphins have Teddy Bridgewater, and you have Tua Tagovailoa, and they're bringing this guy in. Don't you think that they may have something down the road, that a developmental guy that can become a factor without having to draft another quarterback? I don't think necessarily drafting a quarterback in the first round is really a ticket to a championship. You guys ought to know that up there. Ever heard of Tom Brady? And by the way, he did graduate from the University of Michigan, and he was pretty good. Okay. So, I really think he was pretty good. But so, yeah.
It's too bad the University of Michigan didn't know that.
Well, no, they didn't. But, he won some important games over there. Yeah. He did. But we talk about this third string quarterback for the Dolphins. What happens if Tua's not available when they play later on? You don't know. I mean, the NFL is one of those leagues where you can have the best record in the league, but it's about who's healthy at the end is really what it is. I don't care how good you look on paper. I've seen wild cards, teams of 9-7, 10-6 win it all. And, like in hockey, winning the President's Cup trophy doesn't mean you're winning the Stanley Cup.
Don't we know that?
Yeah, well, ask the Florida Panthers this year. How did they look with racking up all those records, and it amounted to a second-round ouster by the hands of the Tampa Bay Lightning? So, so to answer your question, offensive line, no offensive line, wide receivers, running backs, it really comes down to Tua Tagovailoa. How much progress is he going to make under a new coaching regime to get him to go to the next level? We want everybody. Listen, he was named captain of the team, right? So I guess the morale and everybody's feeling good about Tua, and I hope for their sake that they are able to get a winner. Before Stephen Ross took over, the Miami Dolphins had 3 coaches. You had what? Or after George Wilson initially, but you had Don Shula, then you had Jimmy Johnson, Dave Wannstedt, all left with winning records, and I don't think they've had a coach since then that has had a winning record. What does that tell you? A lot of bad football, a lot of dysfunction. Can it turn around under Mike McDaniel? I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, Scott, I got one more question about the Dolphins offense, and then
Sure.
I got a question for you on the defense.
Sure.
But first, I totally agree with you that this team is only going to go as far as Tua can take them, because, eventually it comes down to the quarterback, and you can take them along for the ride, but if you want to get to the big show, he has to step up. But I was looking at the Dolphins wide receivers, because that's been the talk, with around Patriots, Dolphins talk. They have all these really fast, speedy wide receivers, but all of them are in essence slot guys. Wilson played 90% of the snaps last year out of the slot. Hill, I think, was 60%.
Yep.
And Waddle was like 53%. So how do you see this working out for the Dolphins? Are they just going to mix these guys and put other guys out, on the perimeter as they flip them around? Because it seems like all 3 of these guys are best out of the slot.
Whether you know it or not, Steve, I don't have a problem with guys out of the slot. I really don't, especially if they're fast. And the thing is, once upon a time, Mark Duper played here. Once upon a time, Mark Clayton played here. Once upon a time, Mark Ingram played here, the older one. And guess what? They were pretty good.
Yeah,
so
they were.
If you can get your running backs involved in the passing game, that's important. Again, their tight end situation to me is a little bit of a mystery. It always is. So you hope and pray that when you look at the tight ends, again, the Miami Dolphins don't show a lot in terms of impressive tight end numbers. They're usually blockers anyways, and guys that are adequate enough. I think Mike Gesicki was a pretty good one. But again, it depends on how he fits in to the system with Darrell Bevel and Mike McDaniel. Just because a tight end or a wide receiver fits into one coach's situation, Steve, that does not necessarily mean he's going to fit someplace else. Again, you have all this time with OTAs. You have all this time in training camp. And then you have all these practice. I love the idea that they have practices with the other teams 2-3 times a week, because you don't need the 4th preseason game anyhow. And then you have real contact. So I guess to answer your question, Steve, to me, as much as you'd like to have a tall wideout that can catch those long, lofty passes out there, in the end, I always say the analogy in baseball, the object of the game is to hit the baseball, okay? I don't care if it's an infield single or a inside the park home run or just a basic hit, put bat on the ball, okay? So the whole idea in football is catch the football, okay, when it's being thrown to you. And the main thing that you need to do when you're a running back is make sure you don't fumble the handoff. Boy, isn't this basic. Why am I not coaching? Because I'm not smart enough to do it anyways. As far as the Dolphins defense is concerned, again, you can, depending on what type of defense that you have, is is the Dolphins' offense going to be so poor and underachieved, or the defense is going to get worn out at the end of a game? I mean, I've seen a lot of defenses get worn out because of offensive ineptitude. And I think we probably, you know where I'm coming from, Steve?
Yep.
So again,
Absolutely.
We grew up in the 70s. We remember offensive ineptitude.
Yeah, right.
Speak for yourself.
No, yeah, just me and Steve. Not you. We know that you were born in 2006. Okay, you understand?
Well, I hate to bring a sad commentary to this whole thing, but I was at the 1971 game when Chuck Hughes passed away on the field for the Detroit Lions.
Oh,
yeah, and I was just a young, I was like
wow,
10 years old. Yeah, I was like 8 years old, and he passed away against the Chicago Bears when Dick Butkus was on the field, and Dick Butkus was yelling to them, and he said, "Get somebody out here. This guy is out." And I'll never forget. I remember it to this day. I ended up later on reaching out to Chuck Hughes' family members because I wrote a story paying tribute to it on my website. And at that time, I wrote a blog, scottsports33.com, and I still have it active, but it becomes more of a template for the Tribune now. But I was on the field for that. So why am I bringing all of this into play? Because on the football field, regardless of how good of a defensive player and how good of it doesn't matter. You have got to play with the system's basic, that's why you have OTAs, mini camps. I never knew about Don Shula used to have mini camps. Not back early in the 80s. I worked with Don Shula for a couple of years, and he was the most intimidating guy I have, being a young pup coming out of it. But once he got to know me, we had a good working relationship. But, so, Steve, I hope I answered your defensive question. That
the defensive question was, I wanted to talk about the Dolphins' defense. That they were really blitz happy last year with Brian Flores. Do you see that continuing this year?
Well, I don't think that's going to change a whole lot. I mean, I really think that there will be a lot of continuity. You always want to try to take schemes of what worked under the previous coaching regime if you can. If they're effective, Steve, based on the effectiveness of why I don't think you take out what works. I really don't. Mm-hmm. I've always been a firm believer that you get rid of what you don't think is going to work and keep continuity, because it's one thing that the NFL has a large player turnover. You know what I mean? But you don't keep turning over players with the intent to get it. If you have a 3-4, 4-3 scheme, you have to make sure you have your roster to the strength of your personnel. So I don't
think that's why they kept Bevel.
What's that?
I think that's why they kept Bevel, wouldn't you say?
Well, Darrell Bevel came in from Jacksonville.
Oh no, I meant Boyer. I'm sorry,
Josh Boyer.
Josh Boyer.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. So that, if you're going to keep a guy where you have a proven system that really works, don't change it. The whole idea, I think, behind the Dolphins' decision to go where they're at is they needed to make sure they don't look bad on the offensive side with Tua's mistake. If you have a defense that's working well, I wouldn't change it. Why? Do you want to continue to turn over 50% of what was working versus what wasn't working? There's a psychology behind it. Why do you think coaches retain certain coordinators? Because they feel like, hey, I have no problem. I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel. I'm only looking to try to improve what I have. It's not like Mike McDaniel took over a 2-15 team. He didn't do that. Okay. Where you have to change everything. All he needed to do was get the offensive side of the ball up to speed with the defense. And that's what you got to do, with the variable being Tua's health. So now, Steve, I know where you're coming from. I do expect a lot more blitzing this year, or as much as last year, because we all know when you blitz a quarterback, you put pressure on them and you force them into mistakes that they don't want to be a part of. Nothing like a strong pass rusher. Why do you think a lot of teams are starting to draft pass rushing specialists for that particular reason? But Steve, I'm going to ask you guys all a question. What can happen if you blitz a quarterback effectively? Give me 2 or 3 things.
Well, one, you blow up the timing of the play. That's probably for the offense. That's the least of the bad things that could happen. 2, the quarterback gets sacked, or 3, he turns it over via a fumble or an interception.
Right. Okay. So then, So that's my point. So when you have a system which is emphasizing the blitz, okay, if you don't have a guy who's your strong pass rushing elite guy, then you already answered your own question, Steve. Why do you go ahead and talk about why you blitz a quarterback? Well, for a reason. You want to make sure that when you're blitzing a quarterback, that those are that then to me that's as worse as flying in an airplane at altitudes. I'm not using. I don't want to bring the airplane analogy, but if you're a little bit nervous flying in a small aircraft, there's a little bit more apprehension. But the reality is you want to make his life as miserable as possible. Is what you want to do, and those are the four things that can actually take. So again, I'll reiterate, and I emphasize reiterating. Okay, that the Dolphins did a good job keeping intact certain things that they had to keep in, but the whole idea behind the coaching changes. Let's fix Tua so we don't have to do this again.
Scott, you skirted around kind of the answer to my question, but because you've only skirted around it, I will still ask it. Looking at from behind enemy lines, technically, as that's what you are in regard to the Dolphins, what do you believe the key may be for the Finns to beat out the Patriots this week specifically?
That's an easy question. Thanks. We'll find out whether we're going to get an idea what Mac Jones is going to look like with these two offensive coordinators, because they're offensive coordinator A and offensive coordinator B, and who's calling the plays. I think that's the key. Where we all know in Miami, okay, you've got Mike McDaniel, your offensive genius, as they say, and Darrell Bevel, and they're all on the same page. So if Tua shows any kind of improvement this year and the Patriots regress, you don't know whether, this Patriots situation reminds me of Abbott Costello, who's on first, what's on second, and all that business, in terms of being able to go ahead and call plays. So is it Bill Belichick calling the plays? Is it Joe Judge? Is it Matt Patricia? We don't know. But they do know who's calling the plays, one of two people, Mike McDaniel or Darrell Bevel. And then it comes down to quarterback play, right? Is Mac Jones going to be better than he was last year? Because obviously I don't like to judge preseason by what you saw, but he was a little frustrated at times about certain things. There were times when I was looking at his press conference that he showed a little frustration, where everything in Miami, everybody, we're all behind Tua. Glory, glory, had a Tua. Okay, and and no, I'm not going to be American Idol trying to sing, because otherwise I'll guarantee I'll break a lot of Memorex classes as well. So I think, to answer your question, Claire, the quarterback play and the offensive coordinator, whoever they are in New England, and we know what they are, will be the difference. We do. I mean, the running game, to me, is all predicated on whether or not your passing situations, if you're able to get those long conversions on first or second, then your running game is reduced to third and 1, 2, 3, and then the running game takes over to keep the clock going. Because that's the thing, you're trying to kill clock, right? Pretty much. Yeah. And if you can, I always say, see, guys and gal, okay, that if you can get a 5 to 7 yard gain on a first down, Steve, what does that do for you?
It makes it much easier to convert.
Right. And that's what it's all about, right? You want to make sure that you're in those. And now, if we're always in 3rd and 8, what do you think? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to throw the football, right? But 3rd and 3 is one of those downs where, well, you might do this, you might do that, right?
This is what happens when you have a man on who's done his own shows for 30 or 40 years. He always turns the interview around on us.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Scott does.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no. I do the same thing. Scott, I want to
in the hosts.
Yep, Scott, I want to ask you about Devontae Parker. What can Patriots Nation expect out of this man coming in here? How well do you think he's going to fit here in New England?
I think he's going to fit real well. Again, he's out because the Dolphins had, to me, too many receivers is what they did. When you start bringing in the additions that you're bringing in, I think you've got a good player up there, as long as, Joe Judge, Bill Belichick, and Matt Patricia don't mess him up. Mac Jones, he was fine, again, but his difficulties down here were mainly staying on the field due to injury. Again, bear in mind, I personally was a little wondrous about why the Dolphins would trade him inside the division, knowing he could bite you 2 times a year. But they did it nonetheless. What did they get? See, draft compensation for him, I believe, right? So, I don't know. I like that acquisition for the Patriots of Devontae Parker. Keep him on the field and make sure that your offensive system, shows enough balance. And I think he could be a real big factor for you guys up in New England. I like the move.
I do too. I think he's going to come in here and add something that the Patriots had hoped to have, add a couple of years ago. And he's somebody that's going to go up, fight for 50-50 balls. And as he said, what was it that he said, Steve? Any 50-50 ball is really 80-20.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I mean, the thing you always have to have when you're a wide receiver, Steve, I know you mentioned these slot guys there in Miami, but let's face it, if you can find a tall guy that can take it out of the air, then you do it. And, I've always been a firm believer that, and I've seen a lot of tall guys do some incredible things that make people look really bad. So I like Devontae Parker. I hated to see him go. I really did, much less in New England. But, again.
Talking about big guys, Megatron. I know you know all about him.
Oh, I know all about it. Yeah, I mean, and if you really want to dig back in your history book, what about Herman Moore?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was another good player too. So, Megatron, you make quarterbacks look good when you can go ahead and play the role of giraffe, and you can, and you have a little bit of length there, and you can bring in a pass that most people normally couldn't. And that's how I believe that Devontae Parker is certainly going to be a guy to be reckoned with. But there was just there were enough wide receiver positions available that they thought that they can use him. Otherwise, I still think he'd be a Dolphin. But like anything else, I remember when the Detroit Lions drafted receivers 3 in a row. When you had Charles Rogers, Mike Williams, and then I believe it was Charles Rogers, Mike Williams. I think Megatron was the third one. Well, geez, oh Pete's. You would think you would have a good when you're drafting wide receivers, but they don't always pan out. They really don't, and then it could bite you in the back really, really, really bad. So we'll see. But
Claire.
you get the thumbs up on the Devontae Parker move.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, if you're Josh Boyer, the defensive coordinator from Miami, you've watched film of the Patriots in preseason, and they've been trying to install this, Sean McVay / Shanahan style offense, and it hasn't been very successful. Do you prepare for that, or do you prepare for the what we call the traditional Patriot style offense that they've been running for more than 20 something years, or is it just a combination of both for week one?
Oh, I don't know. I'm probably more old school. I think I've always thought preseason and stuff where you just experiment with different things is what you do to see if you think they could work out. But when you talk about Bill Belichick, and again, nobody's going to show much during preseason anyhow. But Bill Belichick is just a creature of habit. And if he knows something's been working a long time, I think that's the direction you will go. I really do. Until I see it in the regular season, in practice, I don't trust any guy who has the biggest poker face on the planet that will give you what he needs to hear at a press conference, even if it's maybe a 1 or 2 line answer. And Steve, you've told me all about his media availabilities, that if this guy doesn't have the biggest poker face on the planet, then find me one that does. So I don't know. I'm one of those, I need to see it to believe it type of people before I can, we talk about Sean McVay. Let me tell you, I'll even take it back a little further. Many, many years ago, the Detroit Lions were one of the first teams that implemented the 2 tight end system when you have Charlie Sanders and I believe it was David Hill, I believe. And anyways, then everybody started copying it. So the NFL is a copycat league. If you think something's going to work, you're all going to implement it. They had the Wildcat for a while. Everybody thought that was an interesting offense. The run and shoot they all thought it would work out until all of a sudden the quarterback got killed, and then you were scoring too fast, and then all of a sudden you didn't leave enough time with a balanced attack. So, again, I guess to answer your question, Steve, from an outsider looking at what Belichick would do, the guy's set in his ways. He really is. And he still has Matt Patricia on that staff. Yeah, say he's in an offensive role. Don't think he's not having any input on the defensive side of the ball, because you know darn well he probably is. But he had to put him somewhere. I mean, think about it. New England brings back old coaches that haven't worked out well. Don't worry, you got a spot with me no matter what. And hopefully you regroup. Otherwise, you're going to be all right here anyway. So he's got a great poker face. So
that's Bill. I mean, Bill is, he's between, him and Parcells, they were polar opposites, but they work together. But he has his own system for dealing with the media. And, you have to kind of read the tea leaves with Bill and read between the lines and try to glean something out of that. But one of our listeners, Chris, said, Scott, 2 of the Good Morning Football hosts picked the Dolphins for a wild card spot. Would you agree or disagree?
I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid yet. Not yet. I need to see it. We go into every year with high expectations down here, and I don't think so. And I'll tell you, it isn't because of the division itself. I think it's probably because of the conference in itself. You think of the AFC West. You got 3 or 4 teams that can get in, right? So you got, and then of course Buffalo. I expect to win the division. So what do you have left? Oh, I think to me the Dolphins are maybe a 10-7 team if they're lucky, and maybe 11-6. But I would venture more toward 10 wins. But think about the AFC West. You got 4 teams.
Yeah, and a lot of people are not only the West, because you have 3 good teams there, but you also have the AFC North, where a lot of people are actually picking Baltimore to leapfrog Cincinnati, who was in the Super Bowl last year.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I know Joe Burrow's a heck of a quarterback. Cincinnati has bolstered their offensive line.
Right.
And of course, we know that the wide receiving situation is good. So Cincinnati made the changes. But the thing is now you know what Cincinnati can do. And I think the only reason that the Ravens did not even make the playoffs last year is because their running game was decimated, and that Lamar Jackson can only do so much. So I don't think that's an unrealistic pick at all. And I'll even make a bigger, bolder prediction under Mike Vrabel for Tennessee. Okay, you ready for this one?
Sure.
Don't be surprised if Malik Willis is your starting quarterback by the end of the year.
I wouldn't be shocked with that.
Nope. I said before that Ryan Tannehill should be pacing the floors at night, because if things don't work out by week 4, this kid could be in the starting lineup. I've told a couple of people that play fantasy. I no longer play fantasy football, to ensure that you stash that kid somewhere on your roster, because he is something else. He is electric, and is the future there in Tennessee. And the future might be coming a lot quicker than a lot of people think.
Oh, I think so too. You ever heard of a guy named Dak Prescott? He wasn't drafted in the first round either. I think it was a middle round pick. How did that turn out? And I'm not going back on Brady that he was drafted in the 6th round, 199th overall. But the reality is,
look at Russell Wilson. All of these guys come later. It's all a complete find. That's why I don't like the kid in Baltimore. I just don't.
Yeah, I just think that to me, Malik Willis will be under center by the end of the year if Tannehill has any more bad moments that Mike Vrabel can't handle. I really believe that. And I'll tell you, I think Mike Vrabel is one of the better coaches out of the Bill Belichick coaching tree. He's done a really good job. He played the game at a very good level anyways, and I'm glad Mike's doing a good job in Nashville. I really am. And but back to your original question, SP, do I think the Dolphins are a wild card team? I'm not ready to go there. Even though I'm on the other end of your show here in my southern Florida, I've always been taught in journalism, okay, to be objective, and I've never changed my colors, and I will be objective. I don't think the Miami Dolphins yet are a playoff team. Do I think they? I just don't. I mean, we'll wind up. Their defense is what it is, but if they can go out there and get off to a hot start, maybe. But I've seen other teams get off to a hot start. The second half, everything fizzled out because, for one reason or other, because of inept player, the unfortunate cause of injuries. And you just don't know. So, all right, New England fans, I'm not drinking the Dolphins Kool-Aid. So if you want to send me hate mail, go ahead and do it. Don't care. But I'm one of those TBD, wait and see it for Miami.
Scott, there was a lot of talk, well, not a lot, but there was some talk around Patriots Nation in regards to a lack of surprise with their 53-man cut down. So it wasn't surprising who the Patriots sort of moved on from or shifted over. Actually, most of them they put over to the practice squad. How about the Dolphins? Was there any serious surprises for you when they cut down to 53?
No, not at all. No, I read a lot of the media distribution quotes and all that, so I follow up with a lot of that. So I think a lot of what was expected was, and again, I'm going to go back to what I said about the third string quarterback. I was glad he made the team. Remember, it's not like the Dolphins had a lot of draft choices they were going to cut anyhow. They had like 3 or 4, and of course now they lose another first round pick next year because of that incident that they had with Stephen Ross. And I think what I saw was what it was. Raheem Mostert's going to be the one guy you have to really watch out for. Obviously, Mike McDaniels knows an awful lot about the guy, or he wouldn't have brought him in. So that's a name that you might want to pay attention to. I would.
I'm going to talk a little bit of tight enders because obviously I know you sort of hinted again about his name earlier. Mike Gesicki, I mean, he's a really good tight end, but there was a lot of sort of talk in regards to a trade or release with him. Is there some serious unrest now? I mean, I know he's franchise tagged with kind of like a 10 million and he's an unrestricted free agent, next year. Is this something that you expected? Do you not see him sort of starting? What's your take on him in general?
Again, you got a good player, you franchised him. I think it's worth a shot to see what he can do in the new system. But if I were a betting man, again, it all comes down. He's basically playing for a 1-year audition under Mike McDaniels is really what it is. A lot of guys, again, remember, Mike McDaniels inherited these players. He did. Okay, it's not like he drafted them or had anything to do with them. And the reality of the situation is I do think that Mike Gesicki could probably be in another area code, and he might be in a state where you have to pay state income taxes for all I know. So again, you never know. To me, I think it's a 1-year audition. If you fit in with this system that we have here under Mike McDaniels and Darrell Beverly, you'll stick. But again, it just comes down to Tua Tagovailoa's decision-making, whether he's going to feature the tight end a little bit more, knowing that, like Steve alluded to earlier in the show, you have a bunch of slot receivers. You have a lot of mix and matching parts with this Miami Dolphins offense. And to me, I'll bring up an NBA analogy. Sometimes you might find yourself with a smaller lineup, but you move the ball much quicker. But as long as you're scoring and you can win with that style, that's fine. There's so many unknowns right now because Mike McDaniels, I told you, was not even an offensive coordinator. He was a receivers coach is what he was, and a position player type of coach. So again, Steve, the difference between how many position player coaches really get hired as a head job? You tell me.
Not too many.
Right.
Some special teams coordinators, Joe Judge being one of them, and then Harbaugh with the Ravens. But some media types or whatnot don't consider those guys coordinators,
right.
because they only coach special teams. But Belichick is a big proponent of special teams. But to answer your question, not many position coaches get hired.
Right. Well, then you made my point. Let's go back to Rod Marinelli, who was hired by the Detroit Lions from Tampa Bay. We all know how that worked out. First year, he's 7-9 under Mike Martz. Black Monday produced firing. To me, the offensive coordinator, how did it work next year? 0-16, and he was gone. The best part about that, though, is I'll give you two interesting Detroit Lion nuggets. Sorry to depress you with the Chuck Hughes one, but I got a couple satiristic ones. Okay, it does work both ways. Okay, number one, the last time the Detroit Lions won a championship was on December 29th, 1957. Why would I remember such a date like that? Well, guess what? That was my birthday 5 years before I was hatched. 5 years before I was hatched. Now, what was December 29th? Came back into the picture. What do you think happened after the 0-16 season? Rod Marinelli got fired. Oh, I was celebrating over at Chili's in Metro Detroit, eating my beautiful hamburger, stuffing my face on nachos and even a little dessert. And Rod Marinelli, you can't go out there and have a guy that was a position player coach walk in there thinking you're going to go out there and duplicate the Tampa Bay Buccaneers style and then wreck the franchise because you think your military approach will work in this millennium. So I guess my point is, and I know I've tried to talk heavily upon this today, is Mike McDaniels being a position coach versus not an offensive coordinator. You don't know what's going to come. He's one of those hires that I put in the potential category.
There you go.
Potential. If it works, you look like a genius. If you don't, guess what? With the history of coaching with recent Dolphins, where they only lasted 2 or 3 years a pop, we're back to the drawing board again. And then and you guys are asking me the same questions like, well, how is this quarterback going to fit in? And I'm going to continue to give you the TBD line, to be determined. And I'll give a lot of our viewers out there, if you agree with me, I got another great acronym that SB's heard a million times called GMTA. You know what that is, Claire? What about you, buddy?
Great minds think alike.
Atta boy, look at this. We catching 101. GMTA.
I was thinking football analogies, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a really tough one on me. But
Scott says that all the time on the
She's been
in the wrong way.
Listen, we can talk football, but come on, isn't there a way that we can teach and give lessons to people out here? Don't you think that this is an entertainment thing where I'm giving you as much as I know? And here's the thing, you got all y'all have to understand. I'm giving you as much as the Dolphins are going to give me. They're not tipping their hand any more than what I read out of the thing. So if I'm giving you a bunch of generalities because maybe I don't have enough information to go with it, it's only because they're only giving me what I can read and try to read into. Every time I put their transcripts up on Twitter, what I'll end up doing, to me, is try to point out what I think the most interesting thing is going to be, because I wanted, Steve will tell you, I tag you all the time. How much of those transcripts do you read, Steve?
I read about 35% of them.
Right. Well, but when I send you the Dolphins ones, how many do you
read? I read those.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. I give him nuggets of other things around the NFL, but I knew he was going to give me the 100% answer because I'm sitting on a show like this and you great people here. So now I'm feeding you information off those transcripts, and I send to my I-75 buddy right down Alligator Alley with all this good information. And Claire, if you follow me on my Twitter account, I'll be more than happy to go ahead and share those transcripts with you and you as well. I'll give you the Twitter handle. It's @Tribune South. And I'll go ahead and tag you on everything related to the Dolphins. Am I giving you stuff in intimate?
You can't tag me. You can't tag me in Dolphins things. I'm really sorry. You can't tag me in Dolphins things. I'm a passionate anti-Dolphin person, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, but here's my point. I'm giving you information though on enemy lines.
Know your enemy. Know your enemy. One of my favorite things.
There you go.
That's fair.
Know your enemy.
I just hate my enemy.
Hey, Scott, I'm going to put you on the hot seat like you like to do us on the Pigskin show.
Sure. Do it.
I'm going to put you in Bill Belichick's shoes. You're now Bill Belichick. I want you to, one, tell me how do you attack this Dolphins defense? And two, I'm going to really put you on the hot seat. I know it's week one. Give me a prediction.
Ooh.
That's okay. I like it when this stuff gets thrown away. So, all right, how do you attack the Dolphins defense?
Ooh.
Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly how to do it. I think that Mac Jones has, for the time being, needs to avoid the blitz and start showing a lot of short screens and rely on the short passing game is what he's got to do. Just get it in bits and pieces and hope and pray that your running game goes well. And then you really want to do it even more. You make sure you got Devontae Parker into the game plan and make the Dolphins regret that they traded him there. That's what I think you do. You have a tall target there that you go out there and go high and you and go into giraffe territory. And that's what I believe. And I think that's what you do. You go ahead and make the short passes. Isn't that what Mac Jones is good for anyways? A lot of the short intermediate routes, right? Mm-hmm. So you rely on what the quarterback can do and hope and pray that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge don't screw things up. And we'll see, will the real play caller stand up? And we'll see if Bill Belichick is really a good play caller. So you attack them with short, low-risk passes is what you do. And then you go out there and try to find Devontae Parker. How many times do old players like to stick it to their old teams? Well, this might be one of those examples where Devontae Parker said, that was a bad move, let me go. And I'll tell you what, I'll have my own New England Tea Party in Miami. And now, as far as prediction, only because the game, I believe it's in Miami. Is that correct? So
yeah,
I'll probably go ahead and give Miami a 21-20 win. But again, I have it practically like a coin toss because, again, I don't know a lot of what we're going to see with Miami, too. You don't know how efficient Tua is going to be. You don't know whether or not Tyreek Hill is all talk and no action based on overrating the quarterback, thinking Mahomes is better than Tua. The only reason why he says that, he's got paid a lot of money to come here. So you better build up your star to make sure that, you're walking into a system that you feel is good. But, yeah, he's better than Holmes because all you have to do is look at that thing called a checkbook, and I'm going to build this guy up. Otherwise, I guarantee you that Tyreek Hill is going to be eating something a lot of us don't like to eat, and that's called crow. Jalen Waddle, I don't know. Again, the Alabama Crimson Tide familiarity factor, we'll see. And, so there's a lot of things that we'll have to find out how he fits in. The Dolphins running attack is and how you blend in. And again, Claire, you mentioned, Mike Gesicki. Is he going to be able to come out, fit into this offense? I've always been a firm believer if you have good tight ends, then you're able to have a good solid blocker, and then you're able to get some of those hard yards that you really need. So that's what I think. I'm going to go ahead and give Miami a hesitant 21-20 win. And this is what you've got to do. Hit them short and hopefully that the Patriots running backs play a role in this thing. But I think they need to use the short passing, establish some kind of a running game, get Devontae Parker in, and keep the Dolphins balanced off guard. Once upon a time, the Dolphins went into New England through the Wildcat offense with them, and the New England Patriots were reeling because they never saw that coming. The thing is, are there going to be any kind of surprise that New England's going to throw Miami's way? Over the years.
Joel's commented he's got a score of Patriots 20, Dolphins 16. I much prefer Joel's goal prediction there, folks. Thanks.
I figured you would. But the one thing that Joel and I have in common is we don't see this becoming a high-scoring game. It's going to be a tough contest either way. So I respect Joel Shapiro's comments. I really do. Again, I told you 21-20. At least Joel and I have 20-20 in common. And once upon a time, there used to be a show called 2020. So Myra Walters and who was the other one?
Hugh Downs.
Hugh Downs. So 2020 here on this show. Good stuff, man. Good. I enjoyed it, Joe. You'll have me intrigued about that 20-16 score.
All right. So are we gonna go around the board with predictions for
why not, Murph?
This weekend?
Oh man.
All
okay,
right,
come to me last because I need to work this out.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. All right. I've got the Patriots winning this game 27-21. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring. As our wonderful guest pointed out, you're really never week one what anybody's going to throw at you. And I think it's a little bit easier for offenses to adjust. What the Patriots have been able to do in the past against Tyreek Hill when things really count, I think is going to play into this game really well. I think Bill's going to come out with one of my favorite defenses of all time, match quarters, and take these guys, these fast receivers out of the game early. And they're going to end up having to run the ball well. And I don't think Miami's going to be able to do that. I don't think their offensive line has come as far as people think. And I don't think New England's offensive line has fallen off the cliff the way a lot of folks around here are saying. It was just getting used to this new system. So, yeah, there's my prediction. Steve, what do you got?
Actually, let's go to Claire and put her on the hot seat.
Oh,
Okay. That's fine. I'm going to go to Chris Goodwin first with Patriots 14, Dolphins 7. I think that's a bit of a Dolphins hater over there. Now, I really like Joel's 20-16. I'm really on board with that. However, if you want me to be different, I'm going to go Patriots 24, Dolphins 16. But I much prefer Joel's, to be honest with you. So just to try and be different. But for the record, I much prefer Joel's.
Yeah, looking at this game, I mean, week one games are so hard to predict. Last year, the Dolphins and Patriots started last year, didn't they? Weren't they in week one where the Patriots fumbled late in the game going for a go-ahead touchdown? I mean, that's these games in the early going tend to be very close. And, the one thing that's traditionally happened in New England is when they go down in Miami early in the season, they tend to melt. And, you're coming from New England where it's a bit cooler in the summer than it is down here. It's supposed to be in the 90s on Sunday. And I like the fact that they're traveling down there today. They're going to get a little more acclimated to the heat. I'm not buying, we all know the Patriots look terrible in the preseason, but I have a feeling they're going to put it together and play much better. I'm going just a little bit higher scoring, and I'm going to drink the Bill Belichick Kool-Aid. I think it's 24-21.
Well, Steve, last time it was versus Miami, so at Gillette, and the Patriots did win 21-11. So you were quite right. The season opener for 2020 was versus Miami.
Well, Steve, you make a really interesting point, too, because I covered the Miami Bethune-Cookman game on Saturday, Hurricanes, and it was 90 degrees on the field. And, I'm glad you guys brought up at least weather, because at this time of the year, when we're looking at September down here, you get 90-degree temperatures. And here's another thing that nobody really even thinks about, okay? And I'm going to just throw this little wrinkle at you guys. Ready? Okay. What are the Patriots going to wear? The dark jerseys, or the Miami Dolphins will wear the white ones? And all of a sudden, when that heat attracts and hits the jerseys, don't you think that might play into it a little bit? The Dolphins can play that jersey game where heat is a factor down here.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever. If the Dolphins, wear the white jerseys. But I had to look it up. Last year, week one in Foxborough, the Dolphins won 17-16. And that was that late fumble by Damian Harris. I couldn't remember the score, but I knew it was very close. So,
well, these two teams always play each other really close. They really do. I mean, it's, I don't care about the different disparity in Super Bowls or not. Miami and New England's a very entertaining game to watch. It really is. So, I have no pride. Listen, I didn't. It's not like I gave you a decisive pick here. You asked me for a pick, and I took a page out of Brett Favre's book where I was waffling a little on this. So, right now, I guess I just I'm giving the benefit of the doubt right now to the quarterback and the fact there's a little bit more stability with the offensive coordinator situation on more stability on the Miami side in terms of the offensive coordinator. I don't know what you're going to get out of New England quite yet, but again, if Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle come up big, then that's where you at. But I don't think any of us are looking at this as a major high-scoring game in week 1. We can all, I think, agree on that.
I'll just make a quick correction, Steve. The game that I Googled, I did the wrong schedule. I did 2020. So I was telling you the 2020 opener first game. So sorry, I completely missed a year out there, folks. So yeah, I lost 2021. I don't know what happened. Blonde moment there. So yeah, my bad. You're quite right.
It's early in the week, so
it's early somewhere, something like it's yeah.
Well, before we wrap it up, because we're actually overtime, we don't want our boss to get mad at us because there's another show waiting in the wings. Scott, as always, my friend, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to talking to you on Thursday night again.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good show. So
yeah, Scott, before you go, quickly just tell everybody where they can follow you on YouTube and where they can check your show out.
That'd be great. Thank you very much, Murph. First of all, our website, just so you know, is www.southfloridatribune.com. We have all of our shows there as well as our content. Twitter, you can find me at Tribune South, or just look for South Florida Tribune at Tribune South. But the biggest thing for us that we're looking to get done here is please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We have a lot of great stuff on there. South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, no cost to subscribe. We have a lot of good football. We have a lot of different content as well. So I'm sure we can find something will interest everybody out there. So we would appreciate that very much. I want to thank Claire, Murph, Steve for inviting me on. It's been a lot of fun. I would, if I had this invite in about 6-8 weeks from now, I'd give you a lot more concrete information. Right now, I think right now I can only give you based on the tea leaves that are being thrown my direction from the Dolphins in history and all that. So, I'll be more specific, hopefully, if we get another opportunity to do this later in the year.
Yeah, we will. We'll be sure to have you back the next time these two teams match up. And I believe by that time, we'll all be able to give some more concrete answers than anything else. Claire, kick us out, pal.
Oh, sorry, I've got to add this first.
Okay,
2020, the year of the Izzo. Chris
Goodbye.
knows.
You didn't
Chris
have to add
knows.
that. Chris, go away. You're killing me, Chris.
Chris knows.
Killing me.
The year of the Izzo.
If you don't know,
come on.
Scott, Claire is a big tight end person, and she loved Ryan Izzo, who didn't work out for the Patriots, and still hoping they bring him back.
Oh, okay, there you go. Well, you know what? Nothing wrong with being a tight end. I've always thought that it was a position, Claire, that is undervalued, and people should really be able. And I tell you what, Steve and I can know. I grew up watching Charlie Sanders, and I'll tell you, those acrobatic catches he made, he's one of the best tight ends that I've ever seen play. So, Paul Moorfield was pretty good down here too.
So on that note, folks, we're going to finish on tight endage. Don't forget also to subscribe to the E2G Sports YouTube channel and look everywhere that you can find so that we don't get in trouble with our boss as well. So thank you all for listening. Scott, thank you so much for your time and your insight. It's been a pleasure to have you, even if you are from behind the enemy lines. He has been Steve. He has been Murph. I have been Claire. We have been One Patriots Place, brought to you by E2Gsports.com. Tune in next time and go Pirates.